Wisdom, mindful lessons in mastery for coaching, competing, and cohesive teams. Jerry Lynch, Dr. Jerry Lynch. Forward by Dave Aranda, who wrote about the time he reached out to Jerry Lynch back many years ago when he was a GA at Texas Tech and how he helped form a lot of what Dave Aranda teaches and uses today. Dr. Lynch joins us with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Dr. Lynch, thanks for your time. How proud are you of what you see from him right now, or really no matter when, but especially with the attention he's getting now?
Well, I'll tell you, Dave, thanks for inviting me on your show. I'm honored, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk about someone that's so extraordinary as Dave Aranda, for sure. But Dave is a remarkable man. The coaching just happens to be the way he expresses it. You know, he's just a matter of a man who takes who he is, and he doesn't let go, and he just makes sure that he stays with himself, and that's his greatness right there.
How, of the people you've met who are philosophers when it comes to coaching, and I think that's a good way to kind of describe him, how unique is he? Because, you know, we're in the, you know, we meet coaches all the time, and I can't think of one that falls into a similar category as Dave Aranda.
Well, you know, that's a good point. And I would say to your question, there aren't like a ton of coaches like that. But I've been at this business for over 40 years. I've been with over 400 teams. And no matter who the coach is, they might not be as glaringly responsive to the idea or philosophy. And they wouldn't go and admit that they were. But when you listen to some of their talking with the team, it's amazing how much they use metaphor and how much they use the teachings of people from the past. But more updated on that, I mean, I've been real fortunate. I mean, I've had the opportunity and privilege and honor of working with directly or indirectly with people like Steve Kerr or Phil Jackson or Anson Dorrance from Carolina. These are all people who speak the language that Dave speaks. Maybe not in the same tone or in the same mannerisms, but basically in their heart of hearts, they all feel that there's something bigger to sports than just the game itself. And they realize that the importance of relationships and building a good culture. But more importantly than anything, they realize how important it is to be themselves. And Dave would say that in a heartbeat. Steve Kerr would say that in a heartbeat, you know. So I don't see it too often, but often enough.
How amazing has that difference been for someone like yourself who's known him for so long to seeing, especially over the past year, when they went from that really rocky first season in Waco and COVID and everything that was going on, and he was, you know, meek and shy, and he still is a reserved person ultimately, but he knew that he had to break out of that shell and you know, expose more of himself. He's done that and done that successfully. It's got to be really difficult, but how much of a jump is that from the young man that you first met?
Well, you know, honestly, Dave, to be honest, it's not much different. I met him as a young man. I think he was 23 years old, a graduate assistant, as you pointed out. And he comes to visit me up in my home in Santa Cruz, and we walk on the beach, and I'm listening to this guy. I mean, I don't usually spend time with people unless they have something to offer and they're good people. He checked all the boxes for me, and I knew right then. And I'm not a prognosticator. I mean, I'm not going to predict, but I'm not surprised. I mean, this doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, I would expect that his success continues because of the way he is and how he's being, not so much what he's doing. Anyone can go online and get all kinds of strategies and a playbook and this and that. I mean, you can talk to people like Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks, and you can get everything that he does, and he'll tell you that. But, you know, the magic ingredient, as Pete Carroll would say, is can you develop relationships with people where they feel safe enough and they feel good enough about themselves where they'll go out day in and day out, and on every Saturday when a football game comes, that they're going to execute everything you've asked them to do and go the distance. So it's not, you know, I have 115, maybe 116 championship teams that were crown champions, every one of those coaches had these qualities. So it's saying something about how much Dave can get out of somebody when you're being real, when you're being a real person, genuine, authentic, vulnerable, caring, compassionate. All these things are what Dave is all about. And if no one sees that, they're not going to understand why he's so successful on the scoreboard. And he'll continue to be that way. And these young people, look, there are not many role models out there of good leadership. When they find someone who's genuine and authentic, what are they going to do? They're going to be attached to them like flies on honey, So I'm not surprised.
He wrote in his forward, Thinking Body, Dancing Mind. He mentioned that he called you out of the blue back in 2001. He was a GA at Tech, I think. I scheduled a visit with him with little money that I had as a graduate assistant. Not only did he reach out to you, but then he spent 3 days with you.
Yeah. Well, I wish that was all me, but I happen to live in a beautiful place called Santa Cruz. And I think that the beach and the ocean and the mountains that surround us and the farmland and the smell of strawberries when the wind blows correctly, I think that had a lot to do with it. But if you want to give me credit, I'll take an inch of it, But yeah, no, when you meet a kindred spirit and they're speaking the language of truth and they're speaking the language of connection, caring, love, this is important, and that's my work. And so I wanted to do all I could in the time that we had to encourage him and to nudge him in that direction and keep going. And to his credit, he's been doing that all this time. So yeah, he read Thinking Body, Dancing Mind, and that just jumped off the page and hit him between the eyes. It happens to be my bestseller in 13 languages after 30 years of being published. And so it said something to him as it does to so many people who still love that way of looking at things, which is very different than most people.
How often have you run across coaches that don't understand your philosophy, at least not right off the bat?
Oh, tons. I mean, it's just, okay, so it's one thing not to understand. I'm here to teach. So if you don't understand, but you're open, you have an open heart, and you want to learn. And why wouldn't you want to learn? Because I'm talking about people that I've influenced, like a Steve Kerr from the Warriors. Everyone wants to know, what is it about that? So people are real curious as to what I'm doing. And when they're curious, they're going to find out and they're going to learn. Now, to your point, there's a whole body of people out there that I haven't reached and maybe never will. They've got all the answers. They know what to do, and they're not interested in finding out why other people can be more successful. I'm not going to reach them. And you know what? It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the people who want to grow, who want to change, who want to be the best version of themselves. Those are the people that will come to me, and I'll go the distance, and I'll do everything I can to help them. And I will not let money stand in the way. I tell people all the time, I'm not about making a living. I'm about making a difference. If I can make a difference in your life, Dave, I'm all over it. And so I tend to attract people who are growth-minded. They have a growth mindset. They're open. They're ready to move forward, just like Dave was when he came to me as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old young man. And look at him now.
Can you tell if they're open-minded? Can you tell if they're really willing to listen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could, too. That's not something that I specialize in. You can. You know, even talking to me right now, you can tell if I'm interested in learning. You could tell if I'm interested in knowing what you know. Yeah, we have radar. We can detect whether people are open. And if they're not open, that doesn't shut me down. You see, if they're not open, then what that says to me is, what can I do to create an environment which would allow them to be more open? You see? Mm-hmm. Because I really do believe, if we're all being honest, raise your hand if you want to be more like Steve Kerr or Phil Jackson or Dave Aranda. And all the hands are going to go up in the audience. But the thing is, they don't know how to get there. So maybe they're closed-minded or they seem that way. So my job is to take someone who's not open to change and create the environment which will allow them to relax and be open and not feel like they're going to fail or I'll be critical or anything like that. And that comes from having a nice conversation and being genuine myself. And, We all want to be around people who are themselves and who are kind and genuine and authentic and open. So, yeah, you don't need to have a degree in psychology to figure out whether someone's open or not. And I know you can do that, Dave.
Thank you. Phil, again, Dr. Jerry Lynch is with us, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak with us on Sikkim 365 Radio. You mentioned, and I've seen where Zen, Tao, when we first got a chance to really see Dave Aranda with who he was maybe when they started having success last year, because the COVID year was such a mess and a new coaching staff coming in town. It was so hard.
Yeah.
And I used one time, and others have used different ways, like Jedi. Is that something that is from your teaching, or is that fair to say that? Call him like Jedi in any way?
Well, you could. That's up to you. If that makes you feel better and it makes it definitive and helps you to understand him better, by all means. There are all kinds of names that we come up with and all kinds of reference points to people who we admire. Let's call him Jedi.
Paula asked the question on the chat room: how do you define success based on your approach in working with people?
Well, success, I don't look at a scoreboard for success, because even though I have 115 championship teams that were crowned champions, I also had 367 teams that never saw a championship game. But I consider them successful. And success to me goes along with the title of one of my books. One of my books is called Win the Day. And win the day creates success on a daily basis. And the way you win the day is stop trying to control the outcomes, for Pete's sake. You can't control how you're going to win the game, but you can show up to win the day, which means do all the little things brilliantly rather than the big things marginally. So what you want to do is, you and I, Dave, the two of us, and your audience there, what we want to do is, what can we control in life? We get out of bed in the morning. We control being grateful. We control where we're going to focus on, what we're going to focus on. If you're focusing in on being pessimistic and being miserable, guess what's going to happen? You're going to go down that road, because all feelings equal how we function. But if you're optimistic and you're feeling really fearless and you're feeling really prepared, well, that's the direction you're going to go as well. So to your point, I really do believe that we can take charge. And the idea, the reason why I wrote that book, and Steve Kerr is on the cover, he gave me an amazing, rich endorsement for that book, because he uses that philosophy with his warrior culture, is called Win the Day. And we win the day by looking at the top 10 things that we can control as we go forward in the day. And when we do that and take care of it, we put our head on the pillow at night and we say, that was a pretty good day. I won the day. And then you get on to the next day and day after and day after and day after. When you put this philosophy in with the team, the coach walks into the locker room and said, okay, guys or girls, what are we going to do? How are we going to win the day today? What are the things we need to focus in on? Okay, so A, we need to focus in on our work ethic. Number 2 is we need to focus in on all the things we can control, like sprinting your lanes and boxing out and crashing the boards and playing in-your-face defense. What else can you control? I can control my attitude. I'm going to bring a positive attitude. What else can you control? I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to be enthusiastic. I'm going to be giving to my team and be selfless. Notice what I'm saying here. These are all concepts of how to be, not what to do. Because the last time I looked, we're human beings, I think, not human doings. And so what I do is I help people really be successful all the time. And they feel good about themselves. When you feel successful and you feel good about yourself, your performances are going to reflect that. It might not be a championship, but it will be the best version of yourself.
What was the genesis of you moving into the sports realm and doing that in your career?
Well, that's a great question. And I'm so happy you asked that, because many people overlook it. And it's pivotal, because without that question answered, I'm not doing what I'm doing and I'm not who I am. Dave, honestly, I love sports, bottom line. But the thing that really fires my passion and the thing that really gets me going is the belief, the deep held belief that a sport experience can empower people more than anything else in life. And when I see that true, and I believe in that, it's remarkable, because what I try to do is I try to help people by sharing my experiences as an athlete, my experiences as a champion, as a person who's worked with champions, and enable them to be empowered. And I can't think of anything else in life that so quickly and so deeply empowers a human being than the sport experience itself. So, why would I want to go anywhere else, right? And loving sports didn't hurt at all.
Did he at all contact or lean on you during the COVID year?
I can't remember the last time we had a conversation. I don't think we talked during that year, to be honest with you. I think a couple of years before that we had communication. Mm-hmm. It's not like Dave and I are on the phone all the time.
Right.
It's not, but when we talk, it's pretty deep and it's pretty all-encompassing. I can't remember if we talked during the 2020 or whenever it was, and then I reached out to him because I knew how busy he was, and I invited him to be a guest on my podcast, which I have every week, Way of Champions podcast. And without a glitch, I mean, he just, yeah, definitely, I'm there, count me in. And then I proceeded to invite him in 2022 as a guest speaker and presenter at my International Leadership Coaching Summit that I do every summer. And he was one of the guests, along with Steve Kerr and several other luminaries.
Do you feel like that a lot of people look at the personalities of coaches and, a lot of times like heavy personalities, loud, it doesn't mean that they're braggadocious, but it just kind of seems like sometimes there's this feeling of what a coach looks like. And yet he has discussed Tony Dungy. I brought up Lovie Smith, who reminds me a lot, his personality of the same. Tom Landry, of course, was very much a very quiet individual, the way he went about his business. Do you feel like that's why sometimes people not quite get Dave Aranda yet?
Well, yeah, people need to be educated. People who don't get Dave Aranda don't understand what it means to be a great coach. And the bottom line to being a great coach, and all the great ones that you admire and respect would agree with me, because I've worked with these people, they all agree that to be a great coach, you have to be yourself. I would never say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to be more like Dave Aranda. That's ridiculous. What I am going to do is I'm going to teach you, Dave, how to be more like yourself. And maybe we'll use some of the strategies and techniques that Dave Aranda uses. And if you're loud and you're boisterous and you have a very different style, that's what's going to win you games. That's what's going to win the love and the compassion and the connection with your athletes. That's what's going to do it. And then you can also have the strategies. I mean, we have to all learn how to communicate. We have to learn what it means to be open and selfless. And these are all great qualities of great leadership. And so we have to know that as a leader, the whole idea behind great leadership is not to be served, but to serve others. Mm-hmm. And when we come in with that attitude, and that's Dave's attitude. Dave's attitude is like, I'm here to serve these young men. I want to help them to become the best men they can be. And as a result, they'll be the best athletes they can be. And who wouldn't buy into that? And he's soft-spoken, and he's understated, and he's a philosophy major. But the bottom line is he's a human being, and he's doing the right things. And that's what great coaches do. I mean, I could give you a list of 10 coaches who walk into a locker room and their voice is so loud that it's piercing. But they get results because of who they are and how they're being. And that's the bottom line.
Because of that, is it easy then not to blow your gasket when something like things start to circle around you? Is there a way you can go into a certain zone that allows you to get through that without being a raving lunatic?
Well, okay, so let's look at this. It's never appropriate to be a raving lunatic. But I've seen the inside of a locker room with Steve Kerr. I've seen the inside of a locker room with some of these other great coaches that seem very calm and cool and collected on the outside. But then they go into the locker room and they get really fiery and passionate and they get loud and they start calling the guys out. But the only reason why they can do that is because they have already laid the foundation, a strong foundation of caring, connection, acceptance, love, integrity. These are the keys. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So if you're on my team, Dave, and I consider you part of my team, then what's going to happen is you're going to feel that foundation. I'm going to make that foundation first, and I'm going to make that strong. And then I could be tough. I could be strong. I could raise my voice. But the guys are going to listen because they know I love them. John Wooden said on the very last day of his career, when he was interviewed by I don't know how many hundreds of people in the gym, Paulie Pavilion, they asked him this simple question: why were you so successful? And of course, they expected him to come out with things like, well, I have the pyramid of success, and I follow that tooth and nail, and blah, 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 on and on. But he never said anything about that. His response was, the reason I was successful was I had a lot of love in my coaching. There it is. Say not another word. A lot of love in my coaching. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't yell or raise his voice or be tough. I mean, he just had a way. When Bill Walton one day walked into practice and he had a tie-dye shirt. Now, this is back, you got to understand, this is back in the 70s when everyone was wearing tie-dye shirts. But in the culture of UCLA basketball, that was not something that would be permitted. But Bill didn't understand that. So he walked in with a tie-dye shirt. And by the way, Bill's like so key to this team. Like without 6'11", Bill Walton, you don't go anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And John Wooden looked at him and said, "Hey, Bill, you look pretty good in that shirt. And by the way, I have a question. Where are you going to play this fall?" And that was the end. That was the end of it. Bill came back in later on in the afternoon with a different shirt, and he even put a tie on. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe I'm making that up. But he came back later without the shirt on. He says, "Coach, I'm going to be playing here." And he says, "I'm glad you made that decision." So he was tough. He would have gotten rid of him. He would have said, "You're off the team." That's it. Now, that's pretty tough. That's tougher than a lot of people who go screaming and threatening that. He was like, "You're not going to play here." Great story, huh?
Yeah, it's a great story. And again, that can still work in today's America or today's society. It just all depends on how much you want to stick to what you believe in.
Well, you know what? The thing I like about you most right now is that you see the connection between what I'm saying in sports and life. And that's where it should go. Because in life, we all need that, right? We all need that kind of connection. We all need to be in an environment that's safe where we can try to fail and not be criticized for it, because failure is our greatest teacher. And we need these kind of environments. And the leadership right now in the world today is lacking. And we need good leaders. And most of the good leaders that I find are in sports. And it's like, oh, well, maybe we get Steve Kerr for president. Maybe we get, let's see, you're down in Texas, right? What about San Antonio? Look at their leader, right? Gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, we need all of these principles apply to life in general and specifically in sport.
Dr. Lynch, we appreciate it. Wayofchampions.com is a great website. He's written numerous books and obviously had an incredible influence on Dave Aranda and what we see from Dave Aranda through the tough first year to the exhilaration of last year and everything we see with him every day. Thanks for your time so much. We appreciate it. And what's the name of your podcast? Is it Way of Champions?
It's Way of Champions.
And I know
Right.
you did like 5 or 6 of them earlier this week or last week. You're always doing one, right?
Well, I'm not only doing mine, but like this conversation on the phone, I get invited to many people's podcasts. They want me as a guest because like you want to hear what's going on there,
Mm-hmm.
So I get invited to a lot of those. And this particular period of time, it just seems like this morning I had a podcast from Way of Champions. It will be aired tomorrow. It was a fast turnaround. And, so yeah, I love the work, and I just love making a difference. And fasten your seatbelt and go Bears, because you haven't seen anything yet.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. Dr. Jerry Lynch, Everyday Champion Wisdom was the forward written by Dave Aranda. What he mentioned as far as what he has with his podcast as well. Wayofchampions.com and his influence on Dave Aranda, Baylor head coach. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Richard Carr.